And it's my great honor and pleasure to introduce the next speaker from the United States. And yeah, we are really honored and happy that you flew all the way here to Rennes. Didi Davis, she has been really experienced in health informatics on many different levels, conformity testing, all the assets that IHE, they have no secrets for her, I think, anymore. Over 30 years of experience, and yeah, it's an honor to have you here, and we are looking forward to your story. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. I always love to come visiting new places, and this is a new city for me, so thank you, and I'm honored to be here today. What I'm going to do is quickly kind of talk to you a little bit about the US journey to interoperability and what we have achieved over the last decade. So I'll go fairly quick. I'm happy to answer questions, but I don't want to steal time from my partner in crime on the North American continent, Attila. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. This is my contact information that you can get to. But I have been doing this for a little over 30 years, so I'm a passionate person that likes to share what I know, but also hopefully learn from others as well, because I don't say that I know everything per se. So some of the topics we're going to really be talking about are the Sequoia project and what we started with, a large network in the United States that based their foundations on IHE. Then a network of networks that integrate a federated approach across data exchange or digital health exchange. And then today, what we're doing with the Office of the National Coordinator, ONC, to actually put together a policy framework that's government endorsed. So that's kind of the topic categories we'll be talking about today. So the overview and the timeline a little bit of where we've come from and what we've done. For those, how many have you heard of the Sequoia project before? Great number. Okay, good. So I'll quickly go through this, but our main goal is a nonprofit for the public good to advance interoperability, to take and figure out how to do this in a secure, interoperable way with the frameworks and the technical requirements well-defined so that you have rules of the road so everyone knows their parts and how to play them and how to be held accountable for that nationwide exchange. So this is a little bit of the timeline on how we've grown over the years. So we were actually started in 2012 by Marianne Yeager. She's my boss and CEO of the Sequoia Project. I have been with Sequoia now 10 years, so I joined in 2013. And so if you look at the timeline, when we were Sequoia Project One Company, we also had one network. It was known as the eHealth Exchange. In 2018, or 16, we actually started a new initiative called Care Equality. So these are things you're going to hear about. eHealth Exchange is one network. Care Equality is a network of networks. That's kind of how to keep them separate. So you can see the timelines of how we've grown. The Sequoia Project rebranded ourselves and actually spun off Care Equality and eHealth Exchange as two separate nonprofits. So we incubated them, we got the business models going, and now they're successfully governed by their own board of directors, their own governance structure and bylaws. We do help support them with testing, so you'll hear me talk a little bit about testing, that there needs to be to hold everyone accountable. So there's still some support for Sequoia to those initiatives or projects, but we do marketing, we do some of the testing, those types of things. The Office of the National Coordinator awarded us the Recognized Coordinating Entity, RCE, title in 2019. The goal was to start putting together and convening work groups to determine how do you put together a government-endorsed policy framework to exchange data similar to what Care Equality is doing today in the real world. So that we've been working on since 2019. I can honestly say that in February of this year, COVID kind of put a little bit of a slow down, like it did for everyone. I think every project in the global world for digital health exchange kind of got slowed down a little bit. So in 2022, we released a framework, a trusted exchange framework and common agreement for public comment and convene folks to kind of see, do we have a straw man? Do we have an outline of something that we could actually use? We did get folks to apply for what's known as the Qualified Health Information Network, and we are now in process of testing those. So this is kind of where we've come and gone. We are also focusing in Sequoia on data quality and usability improvements, because we very much feel by our board that all of these IT projects, they're not good if the foundation data is not good. So we're really doubling down. I'm taking a saying that Derek usually says, we're doubling down on improving the data quality and usability as well. We know it's not going to be one and done. It's going to be something we do for the next decade. So that's kind of what Sequoia is doing today. So again, eHealth Exchange is one network. We incubated that one, started with it in 2012, and Care Quality started in 2014. So they're both incubated and spun off as two different organizations as their own way. We are also partnered with the RSNA, Radiological Society of North America. We are the operational entity to do the image exchange testing. So DICOM Image Exchange, we put together a testing program with their support, and we still operate that today. So we still do that initiative. And then we have the overarching thing that I call interoperability matters. And that's where that data usability, things like information sharing, information blocking is what used to be called, things like payer-to-payer exchange, those things that we all need to focus on from time to time. So our structure for interoperability matters is that there's one leadership council that governs what our priorities are. So our membership at Sequoia tell us what to do next. And we prioritize that based on the gaps and what difference we can make on those. The different work groups at the base of the roots of the tree are some of the work groups that we're working on today. But our goal is to raise awareness of using advisory groups, using the work groups themselves to put together policy forums to inform policy frameworks like that trusted exchange framework and so forth, because we keep having to learn. Reaching consensus is a difficult, ongoing process, and that's something that we're kind of built to do. I'm happy to say that we operationalize 8 testing programs in support of that eHealth Exchange network. I run 4 of those programs for that one network. The testing is done for them to get attached to the network. They're held accountable to those rules of the road. They have to pass conformance testing, and guess what? The same tools that are being used downstairs to do the projectathon are the open source tooling that we've built our Sequoia interoperability testing platform on. Now, have we configured it with our own test cases and for our own vocabularies and our value sets? Yes, so it's very US-centric implementation of it, but it's using the same exact tools. And we've been partnered with IHE Catalyst now, IHE-Europe and Catalyst, since 2017 doing this testing process, so to speak. We do work also very closely with the National Institute of Standards and Technology. Probably 50% of our testing is done using their open source tools. So we not only work with IHE Catalyst, but we also work with other open source developers, including MITRE, which ONC funds for the certification programs in the US. They do support the reference platform that's used by most of the authorized testing labs. There are some others that are designated that use some other types of testing platforms, but the overall testing that we're looking at partnering with them to do is some of the fire testing. We're looking at trying to do a number 9 project starting first quarter of next year. We're going to do some content testing, but it's going to be around just content. Not the exchange of fire, we're not there yet. But we need to make sure that the fire resources actually comply at the implementation, not at just the vendor level. Are they capable of doing it? We know they're certified, we know they're supposed to be able to do it, but did they implement that in their customer site? Guarantee you they have not configured everything exactly the way it's supposed to be. And so if folks don't know what they don't know, that's what the testing is supposed to do. So we're hoping to help everyone kind of learn how to improve their own technology to do some of this more standards-based exchange. Mentioned that ONC selected us in 2019 as the recognized coordinating entity, but a little more about that as I kind of talk you through the journey that we've gotten to so far. Again, all of the exchange that we're doing today in production is foundationally built on the IHE profiles known as the Cross-Community Patient Discovery, XCPD, and the Cross-Community Access, XCA, which is kind of the XDS, the XD star family of things. We also have all those grouped profiles, the ATNAS, consistent time. I was a co-chair when ITI was formed, and so I was there when a lot of those standards were written. And I can tell you that it's taken more than a decade. It's been 15 years in the making to get to where we are, the numbers I'm going to share with you here in just a moment. So the eHealth Exchange today is a hub and spoke model. They have a technology gateway front-ending 330 nodes on that network. There are 61 regional and geographically dispersed health information exchanges. There are a lot of vendors, implementation hospitals from Epic, NextGen, Athena Health. There's other implementations that are connected to this network. It covers about 75% of the US hospitals today. It was started by ONC as the Nationwide Health Information Network. They put their child up for adoption in 2012, and we became the home for it. So that's where eHealth Exchange comes in. So today, they also connect 5 federal agencies: the Department of Defense, the Veterans Administration, CMS for Medicare and Medicaid services, the Social Security Administration, and Indian Health Services. So the latest ones, Indian Health Services, that was added recently. And they're doing pilot projects with the FDA, and they're FHIR-based for the FHIR exchange with FDA. These are the use cases. I'm not going to read them to you, but primarily the largest amount of exchange today is for treatment purposes. But these are all the recognized use cases that eHealth Exchange enables today. Oh, and the little FHIR symbols are the standards are there to do FHIR. They're not necessarily being used yet, but there are standards that have been identified for folks to build to. So again, care quality. Well, eHealth Exchange is one network, but in the US, we can't just have one network. Everyone says, well, Epic Care Everywhere is a network. Commonwealth is a network. SureScripts is a network. Every one of these networks needed a way to talk to each other. So they came to us and said, look, Sequoia, can you help us convene a network of network policy architecture? So we started working through reaching consensus on common rules of the road, looking at well-defined specs. So the IHE specs need to actually be improved over time. So how do we do that improvement and also further constrain them? These are the numbers of CDA documents that are being exchanged in production today on care quality. There are over 400 million, and these are actual clinical documents that are being exchanged on a monthly basis. That's 4.2 billion per year. Now, that does not include the billion of transactions just to discover the right patient and things like that. This is actual clinical documents across 35 different networks. These are showing you the differences from 2022 to 2023, so there has been continued growth as the networks continue onboarding. This is an eye chart, and I apologize, but this is the best way to try to get the top half of the circle are the 35 networks that are in production today, and the bottom half are those who have signed a care quality common agreement, and they're in the onboarding process. They're getting ready to go live. Image exchange vendors, you'll notice there's 4 down there at the bottom. There are 2 of those that hopefully will be live by the end of the year. Nuance and Highland are in final testing to go live. We don't have image exchange right now, so that's where we're a little bit behind than you are here in the European. Want to learn more? Here's how you do so. TEFCA, I've kind of mentioned a few times, it was operationalized under a regulation known as the 21st Century Cures Act in the US. So luckily, we do have some regulation to kind of urge folks to implement some of these standards that I'm talking about. The goal of TEFCA is to really have universal interoperability, but really empowering that patient to be able to receive their own data over time. The operational structure is the RCE will determine those qualified health information networks, QHINs as they're called, and we'll be holding them accountable through conformance testing, and their sub-participants, those hospitals that are connected under the gateways, will have certain flow down provisions. The goal is to sign one data sharing agreement rather than needing business associate agreements between every organization you exchange with. Everyone signs one, and you have universal exchange with the policies and guidelines enabled. These are the components of TEFCA. You'll notice the middle one in black is the QHIN technical framework. That's where you're going to learn more about where the IHE pieces fit. But here's you a little bit more detail. These are the transactions. So the use case that TEFCA is going to enable is query, retrieve, but also push of data. That's something that the IHE Gazelle tooling did not have the capability of doing testing for XCDR. We contributed that through ONC funding, and now those tools have that capability in Gazelle for everyone to use, not just us. This is the push diagram for XCDR for message delivery. And then this is kind of the roadmap for FHIR. We know we're going to need to, like the Netherlands were talking about earlier, we need to be able to enable CDA as well as the FHIR exchange as needed. So we need to make sure that we have that infrastructure. The good news is this whole IHE federated architecture, it can support the transport of FHIR today. We're doing it with FDA BEST. We're also doing it with this biologics reporting. We're also doing it for eHealth Exchange for exchange to the Association of Public Health Laboratories. So COVID results, things like that. So there are pockets of this that can happen, but it's going to take some time to continue growing. These are resources for TEFCA if you want to learn more about it. I'm going to be around for questions as well. And with that, I'll see if anybody wants to take a question or so. I don't know if I have a minute left or not.
Are there any questions for Didi?
Oh, that one? Oh, you want a picture? I'm sorry. And these slides will be available. They already have them, so you should be able to download them here soon as well. Yes.
It seems like you are really integrated with the national infrastructure. How did you start legally in a legal framework base? So you say care equality has spun off of Sequoia. That looks like, okay, it's like a corporate structure that you built. Then how do you go from having a spin-off that's small to rather large?
Exactly. Well, that's it. I think they started growing to be large enough to sustain themselves. That was the key. So a little bit of detail that I didn't include. Care Quality was formed in 2014. The first production exchange of data happened in 2016. It took us 2 years to create the framework. Then in 2016, when the first transactions were exchanged, it's grown from 2016 to those numbers you just saw. So it did take us, 7 years to get there, 2016 to 2023. So I'm not saying it happens overnight. You have to be patient and take baby steps. But reaching consensus and trust is the main thing, and maintaining that trust.
Great.
Oh, there were
Another
two. I don't know.
question. Oh, two.
I don't know who was first.
If I may, Didi, I want to complement your answer. There is a real secret between this success. Two, actually. The first one is a political one. From the start, the Sequoia Initiative was a public-private initiative.
Nonprofit.
And essentially, you had the 3 largest agencies in the US that took care of healthcare, who told the Ministry of Health in the US, get out of our way. We know better than you.
We're ourselves.
Okay? So this was a very strong political battle, and the government said, no, we know better, we're going to do meaningful use. And meaningful use has been a mild success. So top-down governmental ministries-driven approaches have a lot of pitfalls, and Sequoia was at times politically incorrect, but corrected those pitfalls and allow all of those agencies to basically move their ministry in the right direction. That's half of the answer from how did it happen, and it was not always smooth. The other important point is technical stability. Even if I look today on the adoption of FHIR, the reaction was to say, wait a minute, we are exchanging 400 million documents
CDA
every year,
documents.
and those are
Every
CDA.
month.
Every month, okay? So these are huge numbers. There is no country, nowhere in the world where this scale of exchange has happened. based on IHE profiles. So the answer is to say, sorry, I'm going to use FAIR where it is useful, not where it is fashionable.
Vendors are looking at doing FIRE to talk to the patient, to their apps.
Right.
That's what we're looking
And
at
FAIR
in the
is
US.
very good for that.
Yeah.
When you move into the world of national, large-scale exchange, FAIR is great on content, and this is what Sequoia and all of their initiatives have recognized. When it comes to actually legs to move the data in REST, FAIR is abysmal. It works between an app and a server, and beyond that, good luck. It doesn't scale. It may scale one day, but it is not there yet. And that's the other strength. You've seen that the nationwide network and the protocol it used and the spec it used that were developed in 2012, 13,
Yeah, 11, 12.
are the ones that have been recycled for the network of network in 2014 and are being still there.
For TEFCA as well.
Yeah, so stability. You don't change because of the last fad, okay? That is the reason why it has scaled, why it's stable, why it's credible. Sorry, Didi, to
Oh, thank you.
say maybe
I did not pay him, I promise.
the politically incorrect things that I can afford to say.
Okay. Thank you, Charles, for sharing your insights.
I don't know.
We have
Time, sorry.
time for one more question. Because
Didi,
in the
thank you
interest
very
of
much.
time.
And it's a huge effort in terms of, let's say regulating, if you want, or specifying how the data is transferred.
Yes.
But could you also elaborate a little bit on how did you, work on the content? Which data is actually shared? Is there some harmonization? How is that done among so many providers?
Great question. So luckily, we kind of piggybacked off of the Office of the National Coordinator and their certification requirements, which they are changing over time, known as the U.S. Core Data for Interoperability. They identified specific data classes that they expect every system that's health IT related to be able to exchange, and they're continuing to add additional data classes over time. We right now test against US CDI version 1, but they just released version 4. So we're looking at how do we migrate that over time. As an example, CMS just cited version 3. So we're thinking we're going to start testing for version 3 or making some of those tools available so folks can get a head start on some of those things. So we're aligning directly with the regulations. Right, thank you for the time.
Thank you. Yeah, and here is your Breton gift. Thank you so much. And Didi will be here, so you can try to find her to ask other questions you may have.